So good morning, everyone. Um, I had a very Dharma-based couple of days because there was recently published a discussion, a critique, a debate about Rob Burbea's book, Seeing That Freeze. And that's a book that has been very central to my teaching for the last 10 years or whatever it's been, more. And Rob Burbea, as a teacher, has also been a significant guide for me, both in the positive sense of the creativity and wisdom that he brought to explaining really deep, complex parts of the Buddhist teaching. And also as a guide for being really careful, because in his creativity, at times I always felt he was getting a little too creative, distancing himself, especially in the last years. He's passed away a while ago. In the last years of his life, he sort of said, what the heck, and went off in a direction of his own, leaving the Buddhist teachings behind. So always want to be careful about that. Always wanting to be clear internally that everything I teach is based on the Buddha's Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and coming back to that over and over again. So I spent, basically 2 days reading all the details in these three articles, basically, about this topic, about the book Seeing That Freeze that Rob Burbea wrote. And boy, very technical, very specific on different streams of Buddhist teaching, different interpretations over the course of history. And multiple times during that, I thought, oh, that would be a good thing to talk about. Or I saw another point and said, that would be a good thing to talk about. And then somewhere in there was an offhand reference to a particular Buddhist sutta that talks about both the cycle of dependent origination, which is the basis for our daily lives, how life unfolds for us, but also something called transcendent dependent origination, which is the Buddha's spelling out how one frees themselves from a cycle that leads endlessly to creating and dissolving, thoughts and plans and a sense of self and everything else in our lives that we create and then watch as it falls apart and we have to recreate again. And that cycle of creating and recreating is stressful. It causes a lot of anxiety and confusion. And the Buddha wanted to, you know, really lay out the steps of how to get out of that cycle. And the first factor, the trans, I'm missing the word, the factor that turns around from being lost in the cycle to being able to free oneself from it. The factor is called faith. Faith. And I mention faith every once in a while, but I wanted to just see what might be said about it this morning, because it's really it's the pivot point. It's the beginning of the place where awakening occurs, where we begin to see things, from a different perspective, where we can open our eyes and look. For us in our Western culture, I have encountered in years of discussions with different people about this practice, that the number one cause of being stuck in the cycle is believing that we're doing something wrong. Thinking that the problem, the reason that there's tension in my life, stress in my life, anxiety in my life, is because I'm doing something wrong. And that I should be doing something differently. And I'm doing something wrong because there's something wrong with me. There's some way I'm broken. There's some way, this happened and that happened, and I'm not who I should be. And so, we turn to this practice with a sense of, I want this to fix me. The Dalai Lama famously said, no, that's wrong thinking. I always like that. For him, it was like so foundational, so core, so not complicated, so not needing a big, long explanation. Seeing yourself as broken is wrong thinking. It's not true. It's not helpful. So what do we replace it with? We replace it with faith. Faith that if we could see clearly, if we could see wisely, if we understood vividly what is going on, we would know for certain that there's nothing wrong with us, that we're fine, that we don't need to be repaired, that we're not broken. Faith that this is true. Faith that this is true, that we're actually fine, is the core of what is needed in order to look in a different direction, to perceive differently, to see everything that is in a different light than we normally do. I find that it's very interesting that in the Buddha's listing of the steps required to unbind from this cycle of dependent origination, from cyclical living, the first factor is faith, the second factor is joy. That's a profound teaching. What is it that can lead us so that we can begin the process to walk on a path to happiness and ease? It's faith that we are okay and that the world itself, our experiencing the world itself, is a cause for joy. That every sense experience, every bit of all the stories and the junk and the confusion that we create is natural. It's just the result of everything that has ever been becoming what it is now. And that our attempts to use stories to fix stories, to use analysis to repair analysis, are attempts to go in circles. Are obviously not moving us down a path. They're simply allowing us to come back to over and over again the same things. You know, one of the skills I admire that I have is the ability to sort of look at some major event, say in my childhood, and come up with really an insightful analysis of exactly what was going on and how that continues to be with me. Great job. I probably did that for the first time in the 1960s. And I certainly did it in the 1970s and the 80s and the 90s and the aughts and the teens. And I'm still doing it. I still come up with just brilliant insights. None of it solves anything. You know, it's like, I mean, sometimes it's useful in that it points out maybe a specific behavior that I can change or mitigate or work around or something. But in the end, am I free of stress, of anxiety? No. No. The only time I free myself from stress and anxiety is when I'm not making up stories, when I'm not creating explanations, when I'm resting in this, when I'm resting in the beauty of the world, the astonishing quality of senses, not the content of what the senses are, being contacted by in this moment, but just having senses, having some way of being attuned to the world, of different kinds of movements of light and vibration, and it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary what a gift what a gift aliveness is. You know, it's just tremendous. To have faith that we can experience joy directly simply based on that life is joyous, that to be alive is just a hoot. It's just like, this is incredible, you know? It's a big, gigantic universe filled with like everything that's in it, and we get to be part of this. We get to be conscious. We get to know shapes and patterns and different tones and smells and oh my God, like what a vivid opportunity to just relax and enjoy it all. When problems occur and we move toward faith instead of toward, oh my God, what did I do now? um, the faith tells us that problems are just another thing to do. And that working with the problem is fun. It's like, I mean, many of us like to do different kinds of puzzles of some form or another. Problems are just a puzzle that life offers us as an opportunity to, um, to see what needs to be done. And the absolute central key to how to address problems that arise is through the awareness of actions that are wholesome, through actions that are kind, actions that don't cause any harm, actions chosen out of wisdom rather than simply because there's an urge that I want this to occur or an urge that I don't want that to occur. Well, you pay attention to these urges, to the wanting and the not wanting. You know that they're there, but you don't use them or you don't cede your authority to make decisions to the wanting, to the not wanting. You have life experience. You have accumulated wisdom. You have developed. You have attained and reached and realized skills and wisdom. Instead of coming upon a problem and going, oh no, and having that sinking feeling, the problem arises and faith arises. Oh, I can do this. This is just another thing to do. There are aspects of it that are somewhat familiar to my experience. There are aspects that may be new. I can discern what's present. I can act in a manner that is suffused with kindness, that is free of harm, and that is based in seeing as clearly as possible what's occurring externally, say with another person or another being of some kind, and what's happening internally. Where does history show up? Where does culture show up? Where does habits show up? And when they show up, you know, bouncing in your seat and clapping your hands in delight, saying, ah, I can see you. I can see you. Welcoming what shows up, but not getting enmeshed and entangled with each thing that shows up. This is the core practice, knowing what's arising, steadying, steadying so that you don't get enmeshed in what's arising. You can see it, you can discern it, but you don't have to become it. You don't have to be it. You don't have to make it me. There's a lot of energy that wants to make it me, and you calm that energy. You calm it. You say, oh, sweetie, and you know you want me to go on this whole voyage with you. You want me to get all entangled and involved in this. But no, I have faith that I can work this problem without getting lost, without losing the joy of life itself, without separating from the beauty of being able to see, to hear, to taste, to smell, to touch, to think. Life is extraordinary, filled with everything that is. We lose touch with it because times that it's too much. And so we seek entertainment. We watch TV, we go on one of our screens and look at stuff, listen to stuff. You know, we shop, we eat, we do all the different kinds of ways that people entertain themselves or lose themselves. When you do things like that, you're not broken. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing what naturally occurs when things are too much and you need a break. In our culture, in this time in history, we don't think to take a break by just sitting, letting the wind blow, letting sound occur, resting and letting be. We don't do that so much. Some. But we could do more. Sometimes, when things are too much, when something is too stressful, and you really feel a clear need to take a break from it all, and you're moving toward your screen, you're moving toward a book, a movie, a TV show, some kind of, moving toward the refrigerator, whatever it is, as you watch that movement, remind yourself of faith. Remind yourself that you're okay. There's nothing wrong. This is the way the world is. Maybe instead of turning that on or opening that up, maybe I'll just sit for a while. You don't have to make sitting into a separate time of day all the time. You can just in that moment say, I'm going to sit for a while. Just sit down. Maybe it's only for less than a minute. Maybe it's for 10 minutes. Maybe you really, at that moment, have hit on exactly what you need to do, and you sit there for quite a while. It doesn't matter the time length of how long you sit. It's that taking a moment to catch up with yourself. Taking a moment to see where you are, to see what's happening, before you blur it all out with a book or a show or something. Just take a moment. Perhaps when you take a moment, you'll say, no, I really need to, I really need to do that distraction. This is too much. And then, you have the sense of choosing. You have the sense of authority. And then if you go watch something, maybe after a period of time you go, okay, that's enough. And you turn it off and you go, okay, now what? Oh, I wanted to get such and such done today. I think I'll do that. All of that coming from faith. Faith that you're okay. And then faith in a few things. There's this
What a t-shirt.
there's this concept in the Buddhist world that we hear often. The Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. What are those things and why are they related to faith? The Buddha represents that the possibility of awakening exists. It's not imaginary. It's not outside human experience. It is possible for a human being to be awake. In fact, it's possible for all of us to be awake at least occasionally, at least somewhat, right where we are, without having to do anything further, just by being attentive to whatever is occurring in the moment, being awake to the experience internally and externally that is happening at this very moment. Being awake to some of the mind state that's present that brought about the way that this experience is. Being awake to the feeling tone that arises. Being awake to our sense of moral values so that when we choose what's next, we choose in a way that is wholesome. The Buddha represents the possibility, the actuality that this can be done. So we have faith that this can be done. We can awaken. Absolutely. And we have the Dharma, the body of teaching. This practicing with faith is a teaching. We are being taught that we can pivot from being stuck to being open and flowing by an act of faith. By having faith faith in our own accumulated wisdom and experience, faith in our practice, faith in knowing that being awake is definitely possible, and faith that these teachings have worked. They do work. They continue to work thousands of years after they were first created, which is why they're still quite prominent in the world. And finally, the Sangha, the community, us together. Having people in your life who are actually trying, right, to be kind, to do no harm, to make decisions that are wise rather than, founded in what we want and don't want. To live wholesome lives. To have some intention in the way we live our lives, and to offer support to each other, caring to each other, respect for each other, recognizing in each other that we're really doing well, and that we have a portal that leads to joy. Happiness and joy is something that we'd really like to rest in. We can have faith that that's a possibility. We can have faith that we will be able to rest in joy. So let's practice this. Practice having faith that whatever arises is natural, that your experience of whatever arises is natural, that all these arisings can bring you joy.